All right, everybody. So we have a special guest on the second episode of the podcast. So we actually have Andreas Sarris here, who is an incredibly experienced, not only setter, but setter coach and manager as well. And I'm so happy that he's on here. At this point, he's got so much experience, 5 years of setting experience total, building out setter systems, scaling setter teams. He actually is one of the highly regarded members of Closers.io, which you may know as Cole Gordon's company. So, Andreas, I'm not sure how many millions of revenues that you've produced, but I'm sure it's ridiculously high amongst yourself and your setting team. This guy's got a ton of experience and tons of pearls of wisdom to share. So I can't wait to dive in. I think we may as well crack on. But Andreas, how are we doing? I hope we're all well over there.
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Super excited to connect with you. I know you're coming from Jeremy Miner's side of the field, so friends slash competitors in a way, but super excited to be on here, share some insight, positively impact whoever's listening, whether it's a setter, whether it's a setter manager.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. And so I guess the first thing I'd want to dive into is, first of all, like the start of your journey, right? Because for maybe some of us here, we may be new to setting. We're just trying to, get our feet wet in certain parts of the industry. So talk to me about how it started for you.
It started with a random conversation. I think a lot of people fall into sales, and I met some random people and they said, "Hey, where you have a sales opening, OTE for a setter is, 4 to 6K a month. Like, you can do it from home. Is that something you'd be interested in? 100% commission." Knowing now what I know now, if I knew it then, I would have said no, but I didn't. So I just dived into it, started working for free, doing DM filtering on Facebook group. The clients and community model, like, I just hopped right into that position. It was a trial by fire. Never done really sales before, just a DM script and a dream.
Absolutely. And often when you mention about falling into sales, that is the case for literally most people. For some of us, we may have had aspirations as, who knows, like a fireman or a high level entrepreneur of a huge business, or astronaut, whatever that might be. But sales isn't something that we dream of as a kid, right? That is the funny element of it. But of course, the money that comes from making sales and working in the industry can sometimes be very handsome. So it attracts a lot of us, I'm sure. But I suppose as an appointment setter, I guess, going into the beginning of your journey, so when you was at the start, what did you find were like the biggest challenges that you faced, and how were some of the ways that you did overcome those challenges to obviously be where you are now?
Um, Anxiety, scare. Like, I was pretty afraid on having conversations with random strangers, and that came down to repetitions, just doing it enough and changing my mindset on it. I've had really good mindset mentors and paid different coaches for help on mindset. I think that's one of the biggest things for a setter. And then how to work hard. I
Massive.
thought I knew how to work hard, but relearning or learning what hard work really looks like so that I can tell myself I'm working hard. So that was like the two biggest things that I had to overcome, because before this, I did not know what working hard really was. I thought I did, but it was not really what working hard is.
No, and that's interesting because people that come into appointment setting come from various backgrounds as well. Like I think, like I was quite fortunate because I started in door-to-door sales, like 6 days a week, 12-hour days. So I think I knew what hard work was then. So coming into
Yeah.
this, wow, like people who are entitled work 4 hours a day complaining, like I don't understand it. Like that's not hard work. But at the same time, it's like if you haven't come from that background, it can be quite a shock to the system when you're
Yeah.
dialing, people telling you to F off like every few dials, and sometimes getting very direct and uncomfortable conversations. It's hard to deal with when you start out. And it even was for me with my door-to-door experience, I still found it very tough. Even on DMs, it can be tough as well. Although nobody's speaking to you over the phone, sometimes it hurts more through DMs. I just don't know what it is. But so
You sit with it. There's nothing you can do. If it's a Zoom call or in person, you can still try to salvage it. If it's over a DM, it's just staring at you in the screen. You're like, this is done.
exactly. You kind of you see how bad you are at the start. So no, I definitely that was the start of my journey as well, was DMs. But no, that's excellent. And I suppose for setters out there that are looking to really level up, they may be part of an offer but just not performing the way they want to, or what really want to just level up, even be part of a better offer, like what would you recommend for those setters that are looking to really level up? And what have been some of the tendencies that you've seen from the various amounts of people that you've coached?
Entering the entrepreneurial mindset, like treating it as your own business, as your own offer, obsessing about, your offer's founder, seeing what character traits, what skills they have that made them get to where they are, and seeing what you can do to develop those gaps, because that's what will make you the best of the best. And ultimately, I think most setters don't want to be a setter forever. And that's how you end up getting out of the setter role, is by gaining the rest of the entrepreneurship skills, because it'll make you a better setter, a better closer. I mean, there's stuff and positions and a lot of online offers beyond setter and closer, back end leadership, things like that. Those are the skills you need to have to go into leadership. So those skills will make you a better setter by just making you better at the entrepreneurship mindset, like approaching challenges, solving problems. That'll help you, help your clients, help your company. Everyone benefits from having those skills outside of raw sales skills, because those you just gain with repetitions.
Yeah, 100%. And would you say that being an appointment setter is like kind of like intrapreneurship?
Like you're working inside a company, or
Yeah, but you're an entrepreneur inside the company. That's
yeah.
the frame it.
Yeah, because you have flexibility, and especially if you're on a larger offer, there is so many different lead sources and areas that you can hit outside of even what your offer owner might clearly define for you. So if you're approaching it like that, you'll get more creative around how you actually get the end result, and generally create better results. And your owner will have more trust in you if you can come to them and say, like, hey, outside of these resources that you gave me, I came up with this script, this solution, this process that is generating us more sets, more revenue. And I think we could add this as an SOP. And it's really impressive, and it gives you a lot of goodwill in your offer. And just generally speaking, it's a good skill to have.
Well, yeah, it's like, imagine if you started your own business, sometimes you'd have to do those very activities if you're starting from scratch. So if anything, you are pretty much acting as if you were the entrepreneur for that company and building that business from scratch. Even though,
Yeah.
yes, the company might have systems, it's already established, it's got team members. But, if you treat it that way, that's the mindset of going into any offer. And even as a closer, as well as a manager, you are owning that business, right? It's kind of like you have a percentage share of it. That's the way you've got to treat it. Absolutely. And actually, I'm circling back because you mentioned about investing into mentors, mindset coaching. And that's something that I started out with, is investing into a career development mentor, helping with mindset, figuring out the space and developing my skills. And that was, for me, if I hadn't done that, who knows where I would be today, probably way further back. So like, what would you place the importance on with like investing into mentorship, asking for help? Like, how has that been for you?
I mean, the first time I did it, it was terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I've just started making money as a salesperson, as a setter, and the money was pretty good. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what could I do to further my skills? And it's like business owners invest in mentors. And I was like, I should do something like this. So I looked around a little bit, had some offers that intrigued me, busted them up a little bit, because I was like, I'm in sales too. Really sell me on this. Went with a mindset offer. It was the most money I've ever invested in myself. I think it also solidified the idea that this is a career and a profession that I'm going to continue to improve on, because I put my own money into it. It wasn't a company supporting me, it was myself. But I mean, it paid dividends. It helped a ton with confidence, how I performed on conversations, how I viewed myself and my own skill sets. It accelerated everything. And the difference, it was an 8-week program that was a couple $1,000s. The difference was night and day for me in terms of confidence and conviction.
Yeah, and well, that's a bit of a mic dropper as far as how you ended that. So when you say confidence and conviction, how important of a role does that play in appointment setting? Because I know from personal experience, without it, you're basically screwed.
Yeah, I mean, you're selling yourself on every single conversation, whether you're representing someone else, whether it's you on the phone, on a DM. people need to like you and believe in what you're saying. And that comes down to confidence and conviction 100%. I think a confident and convicted person with very little sales experience can go farther with someone that's in their head with a lot of sales experience.
That's it. And I guess that will lead me to, I guess, some of the things that can happen as we go through our journey, right? So I'm assuming that as you've been through this journey over the last like 5 years, I'm assuming it's not been sunshine and rainbows the whole way through, and you've had a nice path that's led you upwards the whole way.
No.
There have been some tougher times. So from your perspective, what has been some of the things that have happened that obviously at the time you did not like, but were some of the, I guess, the blessings that you look back upon now? Like, what have been some of those lessons that you've learned, in your journey there?
You have the valley of despair. It's not a concept I came up with in any way, shape, or form, but as you become more familiar with something, you go through different phases. You have uninformed optimism. In sales would be like, oh my gosh, remote work, I can make so much money. You go informed pessimism. Oh my gosh, this is a lot harder than I thought. You enter the valley of despair where you're like, I don't know if I can do this. And there, I think you learn the most lessons about yourself, because you do have ups and downs, ebbs and flows, and learning how to push yourself out of the downs and maintain consistent performance is what that teaches you. And I think that's been the most valuable lessons, because it's easy to pat yourself on the back when you're winning. It's hard to pat yourself on the back when you're losing.
Yeah, it's huge. Like, so many points to clarify on. I think the main thing that I wanted to touch on was like the
Sure.
consistent performance, right? Because
Yeah.
that's, yes, alongside developing skills, having a great mindset, those are very important things, systems and processes, but having consistent performance in results, especially in such a volatile space that we're in, is very difficult. And so for you, what do you think were the best determining factors? I guess if you could relate, because there's so many things, maybe the top three, like what do you think helps you with that?
The belief that I am in complete control of my own actions. I think that's my biggest thing, because on days where I don't get the outputs that I wanted, I reflect on what I did that day and being able to confidently say I gave it my all. I left everything on the field, and the day wasn't great. It was a horrible day. It's okay. It happens, but I still gave it my all. And that's the important part. Focusing on that, I would say, would be the top one. And then the second one would be reflecting on those bad days and looking at what I could do better. I obsess a lot about looking back and just seeing what I could refine. That obsession around better, I think, is not a quantifiable skill, but just always wanting to see what I could do to improve even more, whether it's internal resources, external resources would be the second biggest thing. And then the third biggest thing is consistency in the learning. Like good days, bad days, I personally invest around 30 minutes a day in personal development, just anything, book, podcast, internal training, every single day without fail. Doesn't matter what else I do, 30 minutes of personal development.
Amazing. That's good. And I've actually been in environments, especially with closers.io, they're very heavy on development. Of course, being in Sales Sniper, Jeremy Minor, it was the same on my side. And I remember speaking with people, they would sometimes do 3 to 4 hours a day of development, like constant role plays, reading books, rah meditations, ice baths, like all these different things. And it got to a point where, and if I don't know if Matt Ryder's watching this, but if you are, you called us all out on it for those who are doing it. But anyone who was just doing 4 hours of development a day and people saying they're working 16 hours a day, it's not true. You're probably working about 6, 7, but a lot of it's just rah stuff. And so I love how you've said 30 minutes, because that for me was my optimal point, 30 to 45 minutes a day. If I did that, that's what enabled me to develop the skills. And then outside of sales, I would just naturally consume the information because I wasn't thinking about it. So like, did you find that 30 minutes is your optimal stage, or how did you get to figure out that like that's a good amount of time to be consistent with?
I call that my bare minimum. I think that is my sweet spot, 30 minutes to an hour. There are days where I consume a lot more. I do enjoy it. So I try to replace like doom scrolling, for example. If I catch myself doing it, I'll switch over. It's like if I'm just consuming random information, might as well consume sales related information. So I'll try to catch myself and do things like that in my downtime, just offset screen time and things like that. But if I don't do at least 30 minutes to an hour, I start to feel lost. I start to drift because I'm not in that growth mindset.
Yeah, got it. No, that's excellent. Um, and then I suppose for appointment setters right now, of course, the industry has changed a hell of a lot, and especially in the last couple of years. For anybody that's trying to be better as an appointment setter to grow, what would you recommend as like a, I don't know, a book or a resource, something that you've seen that's helped you the most with your skill development?
Um, I think Todd Herman. I heard him speak. He has a book called The Alter Ego Effect,
Oh,
and it talks about
yeah.
yeah, it talks about stepping into a persona. It's hard to learn skills. It's actually a lot easier to put on a costume and put on a persona to be who you need to be, and it talks about that. The coaches that I hired taught me some of that. I don't know if it came from him, but having an identity, this ideal Andreas that I can step into really easily because I have him written down, like this is who superstar setter Andreas is, has helped me tremendously on days where I feel down or off or whatever personal life is getting in the way. I throw on my costume, my Batman suit, and I can be a superstar for the time I need to be a superstar.
So you're Batman. That's your alter ego.
My alter ego is like the respectful savage setter Andreas. But the
So
Batman's an analogy. Respectful savage, yeah.
love
Because
that's they're opposites in some way, right? Savage is like,
yeah,
just all out, do what you can, but respectful is like, you're pretty withdrawn, but you're at the same time you treat people very well. So like, yeah, describe what's a respectful savage. I've not heard that before.
I mean, I'll tell you, your business sucks with a smile.
Okay,
So
fair enough. I like that.
yeah, I mean, I have a very uplifting personality type, but I will tell you how it is, and I stand my ground when it comes to conversations. And because I'm not mean about it, people are much more receptive to critical feedback.
Mm.
I'm bringing it in a positive way, positive energy. I'm not sitting here yelling at you, but I am going to tell you that this is wrong and that you need to change this and that it's coming from a care perspective. Like I care about your personal well-being or your company, which is why I'm telling you this stuff.
Yeah, that's absolutely massive. And of course, this will be relevant for guys doing inbound setting, triage calls. But for you guys that are DM setting or outbound right now, this is very important principles to understand is to be able to challenge, to be able to have the difficult conversation when it needs to be had to address that elephant in the room. Because otherwise the elephant gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that elephant then gets passed to the closer, and they're not going to appreciate that elephant either. So
No.
like for you, and because that's another thing that I struggled with at the start when I was challenging people, is that I would go from either sounding too nice and timid to being just an absolute arse to people, right? Like I would just be too direct and people would be off put by me. That was what I initially struggled with. But the getting towards the balance of it's healthy, you care about them, and at the same time, it's like it needs to be said. Like, how did you strike that balance with challenging people?
Um, by letting them almost setting up a trap, I guess. I don't love the word trap, but by
Interesting.
asking good questions so that I can use their own words against them as the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying. Because
There's
the
congruence.
psychology, yeah, the psychology behind it is people don't like bad feedback. But if you use their words to explain to them why you're giving them bad feedback, it's more so their actions and I'm observing what's going on and giving them clarity around it,
Mm.
not I'm trying to intrude and like force a position onto it. And I see a lot of setters struggle with this, like for example saying, oh my gosh, we can definitely help, when you don't know that for a fact, because then they're like, well,
You're
how do
getting
you,
it wrong.
yeah, right, it's like, how do you know that, how can you tell me this, and then you can't justify it. So I justify it and then tell them it. It's like based off of this, here's what's going on. This is why this sucks.
Yeah, it's massive.
And
It's huge.
because then I separate myself from the solution. And I'm like, hey, this isn't like us, but for you and where you're at, if you want to achieve this, you need to do this. And this is why what you're doing isn't working. Now, if you want to continue to chat about that, we can chat about it. And then they said, or if not, we can go our separate ways. But if you do it like that, and this works over DMs too, I've tested this over DMs, people are just like, yes, I want this solution. And then they're very bought in because you showed them that you were listening and understanding. That's what people want. They just want to feel heard.
Yeah, simple, right? Easy to overcomplicate as well. But it's not only doing that, but it's showing that it doesn't matter if no is the answer for them, if they're not interested, if no to working with your company is the best thing for them. It's making the most optimal decision that works for them. And that might not be working with you. So for those of you that are watching and focusing on, yes, let me just get a high volume of sets, or I just want to get as many through to the closer as possible. And don't get me wrong, I was there when I started. It was all about sets, right?
Yeah.
That should never be the focus, because at the end of the day, not everybody can be helped. And it's focusing on being that person that's detached and doing the right thing for that person, even if it means not working with you. And ultimately, that builds your authority, makes people heard and understood, and therefore they trust you. They might even come back to you later on because they liked your conversation that much. I'm sure that's happened with you, Andreas.
Yeah, it happens. It happens a lot with me, and people remember me for months and months and months because I told them the truth, and the truth hurts sometimes. Some people can't handle the truth in the moment,
No,
but the
absolutely.
truth is the truth. And if they figure it out later, they'll remember you in a positive light, whether it's your DMs or you're representing someone's DMs, and they'll come back and they'll be like, I get it now. Like it's almost like dad energy. It's like dad was right. And then they come back.
Absolutely.
So,
I always kind of like to say, like the uncle that you respect, who's like, the wealthy uncle, who's like
yeah.
this relative, right? Like that's how I always look at it. No, it's 100% right. And no, it's a shame we haven't got much more time, Andreas. I wish we had about half an hour more, but it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope you guys have enjoyed some of those pearls of wisdom from Andreas. Feel free to cut these clips up; these will be very useful for you. I'm sure I'll be doing that myself. So that's everything, guys. If you enjoyed this podcast and you want to see more, then please do like, subscribe, please share the video. Actually, as well, comment what were your biggest takeaways that you got from listening to this, because there was a lot. So make sure to cover the most important points for you guys personally. And we'll leave it there. I mean, is there any way that people can reach you, Andreas, if they ever want any tips? I mean, I reach you through Facebook, but is there anywhere else?
Yeah, my Facebook and my LinkedIn are both outward facing, and I accept messages on there. If you have any questions, you want to chit chat, I mean, I'm happy to share any insight that I can on there. And then make sure that you stay tuned, because Taylor is doing really good work out here, and he's trying to help empower setters as much as possible.
Absolutely, that's what we're about. And I can't do it myself, absolutely not. And that's why we bring on guests like Andreas. So appreciate it, guys. And if you enjoyed, make sure to do the following, like I mentioned. I'll see you guys for another episode soon. Take care.
Awesome. Cheers.